Well, good morning guys, hope you're all doing well. So today we've come across on the ferry from across from Skye across to Harris and Lewis, and this is for the start of our collaborated workshop with myself, Adam Gibbs and Dean Allen, for the start of a week-long workshop. So what we've done today was come straight off the ferry. We're letting all the guests get settled in the hotel and what have you, and Adam and I have come down to one of the few beaches that are around on the Harris coast, just to kind of give you a bit of a glimpse of what we're going to be photographing over this next week. And as you can see, absolutely beautiful conditions this morning. It's quite stormy, there's lots of movement in the water. The clouds are looking amazing today because there's loads of detail up in the sky there. And every now and then I can just see behind us here the light is starting to try and come through again. And this is one of the things that I really like about this island. The fact that the light changes so fast, constantly. It's always moving, obviously, because these weather patterns just keep blowing through here. So it's ever changing. So what I'm going to do, I've got a composition I've actually shot before, but I kind of wanted to work on this a little bit today and see if I can improve the composition from the last time I visited. So I'm going to get set up, I'll get you to the back of the camera and I'll start to walk you through what I'm seeing here. Now, a bit of a tip for you when you're photographing down on seascapes like this, and especially rocks like this, pay attention for where the black parts are in the rocks, because that tends to be where the slippy parts are, and you want to avoid those if possible. And also pay attention to the fact if they're darker and slippy looking, that's not where you want to leave your camera bag. You want to make sure that you move your camera bag away from these darker areas and away to where it looks like the sea doesn't reach, because I've seen it happen all too often. People leave their camera bags down there and these waves come in so fast they can just carry your gear straight away. So either leave it up high or leave it in a place that looks as though it doesn't get touched by the tide. Now, another thing to really bear in mind is, this is a really good tip, is don't, and I mean don't, leave your tripod like this and walk back to your bag and go and get something, because what so easily happens is one gust of wind coming can knock your camera flying into the water, or if a rogue wave comes in, it'll just take it, and it can either take your camera or it can take you. So the other thing is always don't get transfixed on looking through that viewfinder when you're really close to the coast, because it's so easy to be looking through here or reviewing images or whatever and not notice what's happening in front of you or behind you. So always be really careful when working this close to the sea, and never turn your back on it. Always keep an eye on what's happening around you. Right, so I just want to show you what I've got on the back of my screen. So what I've actually got is, if you look through now, what you should see is I've got that boulder, hang on a minute, I've got that boulder on that first intersection of the first third there, just off to the left hand side of the frame. In the distance there, I've got the mountains running along the sort of middle of the frame, and then the upper frame I've got that lovely cloud and texture in the top of the frame there. Really quite like it. To the right hand side I've got this sort of boulder that's just out here, which is, I quite like it. And then off in the distance, way out there, you've got the Harris Hills off in the distance. And you've got, I don't know whether I'm going to get it in, but McLeod's Stone's just off to the right here. I think that might just be slightly out of shot. But what I'm doing is I'm taking shots at various shutter speeds, because what I tend to find, especially with this kind of shot, is I might not like a really long shutter speed because it might smooth the water out too much. I like to have a bit of texture there, but at the same time I also like to have that motion. So what I tend to do is take shots at various shutter speeds, and then I can blend elements of each shot into the final shot. So hopefully this shot's turned out. It'll probably be a blend, and I'll tell you if it is a blend of various shutter speeds or whether I just went with a single exposure. I tend to really experiment here, especially on the coast side, because it's ever changing so fast, and I do like to sort of add elements of various shots in. If that's all worked out, I'll pop that shot up now. Now the other thing I find really useful when doing seascape photography is to use a remote shutter release. The reason for it is, I know a lot of cameras have 2-second timers built into them. The problem is, I find when I'm shooting on the coastline that by the time you've pressed that shutter and got that 2-second timer out of the way, you've missed what interested you in the first place. It might be texture in waves, it might be a certain pattern, it might have been the way that the waves were coming around a rock. Whatever it was, you've missed it. So using a remote shutter release means that you can take the shot as you see it happening, and it means you can time those shots a lot better. So that's the way I like to work, especially on this sort of scenario. So for this one, guys, I've had to push you right out of the way because there's waves coming in here all the time. But what I want to do is show you the back of the camera again and just show you exactly what I'm focused on here. So if I just set this off, go in now, so you can see what I'm looking at. If I look in here now, you've got this beautiful sort of shape to the rock. There's this lovely U shape in front of me here, and there's a rock. And what tends to happen is these waves come all the way around and circle around this rock round here. When they come in, the waves come round and circle around. So not only do you get the water going back out again, you get the waves coming in. So there's little waterfalls and all sorts of things like that happening. Obviously, as a backdrop, I've got the Harris Hills and everything in the distance there, and that beautiful textured sky above. So I think there's loads of elements I really, really like about this shot. There's nothing really difficult about it. It's a lot about experimentation. People like different things with the movement of water. I think it's more a case of just bearing with a shot, trying different shutter speeds, finding what works for you the best. But yeah, I really love this shot here. So there's lots of movement going on in front of me, and I think that makes a really interesting foreground. So when this shot's finished, I'll pop it up now. So this is the kind of photography I really, really love. The energy of the waves and the water, it makes you feel alive, this kind of photography, but you really, really do have to pay attention when you're out. But for me, there's so much to photograph in this kind of scene. You've got all this power of the waves, you've got the water movement, you've got the beautiful shapes and textures in the rocks. There's moody, dramatic skies, mountains off in the distance. For me, this is what Harris and Lewis is all about, is this energy, and the light that this place produces is just absolutely fantastic. Probably one of my favourite places so far for seascape photography. So with that last shot, guys, I couldn't film it because obviously this wind's quite strong and that camera isn't going to stay in place, and I can't be juggling 2 tripods at once, but I filmed a little bit on the back of the camera so I can show you the composition I was working on, and I'll try and talk you through that now. So the reason why I've chosen this composition is because I really like the power and energy of those waves crashing into the rocks in the foreground area there, and the way that it cascades off the rocks. I also like the kind of zigzag shape that leads out of the bay and into the mountains beyond. Really, really enjoyed that. So I've tried a couple of different shots here. one with a really long shutter speed to give a nice ethereal look, and one with a shorter one around about 2 seconds or so, somewhere around there. Let me know which one you prefer in the comments below. So hopefully you've enjoyed this week's video from Harris and Lewis. Thanks very much for joining me again, guys. I'll see you on the next video soon. And if you want to support my channel, please go and check out what I've got for sale on my website. Thanks very much for joining me. Take care. Bye bye.